Hi guys, what's up? Welcome back to the I Love You So Much YouTube channel. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let's get started with the episode.
Hi, Bria.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm very anxious today, and when Bria walked in the studio, I was like, thank God you're here. I'm going to feel so much better, selfishly, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm bringing the calm today, which is actually not normally my vibe, but I'm glad that like I can do that for you.
You are very calm today.
I am, I'm telling you.
What have you done differently? Like, what's happening?
I'll tell you after the episode.
Okay, I got it. We're also matching today.
I know, and I'm wearing Oh Kind pants
The most supportive friend. We both are wearing them. We're both wearing blazers with them.
I was like, let me be cute and get my Oh Kind pants today. Honestly, I've been wearing, can we cuss here?
Yeah.
I've been wearing the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And then like I'm trying to be put together, but like blazers in Texas, like what are we thinking, honestly?
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the thing. I wear like the O-Kind pants because they're so lightweight.
Yes.
And then I'll wear like a tank top and then I throw the blazer on when I'm inside.
Yeah, you knew what you were doing with these because it's like Texas girl summer, but also we can make these work.
And it covers, well, like when I have like a really bad self-tan, which is like 90% of the time, like when it's like peeling off my skin, I can cover my body in the summer when I really need to. So it's really actually become the best thing ever where I'm not scrubbing my skin 24/7. So.
No, thank you for these pants.
They're incredible. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to talk to you about a lot of things, but I want to start with navigating adult friendships.
Okay.
That is a very tough topic. It's very hard. I think we talk a lot about making friends post-grad, which is one thing, but then I think navigating friendships as they're changing, people are getting married, people are getting relationships, changing their career, just growing apart. It's a really hard thing, and friendship breakups are truly like a heartbreak. Like I've grown apart from a very good friend of mine growing up, and it has been so difficult for me. So do you have any like advice or wisdom on the topic?
You know, so honestly, like I am definitely still in my journey of it. But what I can say that's brought me a lot of peace recently. Oh my God. So you know how I saw you? I had a 10-year high school reunion, you guys. And Kenzie just happened to be at the same bar we were at. And I was so thankful because, you know, anxious girlies here. I was literally in purgatory. And I see Kenzie across the bar. And I was like, I called her and I was like, Kenzie, can you please come here? And I just needed like a quick hug from Kenzie. Like, you know, that energy.
Basically what I needed today.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm bringing that today. But so when that day happened, I of course went into my 10-year reunion like very stressed out. And also just like, I don't know how people interpret me anymore. And a lot of my high school friendships didn't work out. So I felt a lot of different ways, although I was really happy to see a lot of people, but I was talking to a few people that were like, I've wanted to reach out to you for a long time. And I think when you go so long without talking to someone, you kind of get in your head about how they think of you. And really, we're all just overthinking it. So the moral of the story here is that I realized I was overthinking it and that if I wanted to, you know, nurture adult friendships, old or new, I just kind of have to initiate that and not overthink it. Cause I don't know what it is. I think after the pandemic, I was like, nobody wants to hang out with me. Like really kind of got in this weird headspace about people wanting to spend time with me. And I'm an introvert. So like, I really do like spending time by myself, but I think it's not as bad as we all think it is. Like if you want these friends, just make the move kind of vibe. So since I've moved back, like meeting you, I was so glad when you like messaged me because I was like, oh my gosh, I want to like hang out with this girl. I feel like we would vibe. And that kind of like gave me the confidence to be like, okay, we get along so great. I really should not be afraid to just reach out to people. And since like the past few months, I've been making more efforts, trying to do like more friend dates. And really it's just like, hey, it's casual. Do you want to like go grab a drink? Do you want to get lunch? And with how busy everyone is, like it can really be hard, but that's not like a personal attack. So you just kind of have to be like understanding that everyone's evolving and growing. And, you know, some of us have families now, married, kids, like whatever the case may be. It's not a personal attack if it's a little bit difficult to maintain your friendships like you used to in your teen years or your, you know, younger adult years.
I think when we isolate ourselves too, we, like you said, get so in our head, but we spiral. And then all of a sudden, everyone hates us. And it's almost, for me, I find it's in like always. For example, I'm going on a trip with some of my best friends, meeting up with other best friends this weekend. And I was like, well, what if they don't want to hang out with us? And I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? And I was really in my head about this morning.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm literally currently planning another trip with the other group of friends. Like, it is so crazy, but I will get in a spiral and convince myself that no one likes me, that no one wants to be around me, that like for me to ask someone to do something, like to hang out, is such a like burden on them when I'm in a weird place. Like, I think especially after the pandemic, we all just kind of got weird, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, I think we're all just overthinking it and not verbalizing it. And it would be a shame to just like miss out on quality time with people, because it's honestly helped my mental health drastically to hang out with people outside of my husband and dog. So, I mean, I love them dearly, but like, we need our own lives too. And so when I went to that 10-year reunion, I actually ended up getting lunch with a few people that I connected with there. And we're just like saying the same thing, like exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, I would never think you'd want to hang out with me, or I figured you were too busy. Like, I am busy, but like, we'll figure it out. Even if I can't hang out with you for like 6 weeks, we're going to hang out. So, you know, you go out of your way to find that time. And I think everyone just has to be like patient and understanding that this is a weird transitional period, especially for people like us who are like in our 20s and trying to figure out like this new emerging adult life and trying to balance that on top of like everything else going on. So it just looks different, I think, as an adult. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to kind of like get acclimated to this new way of having friendships.
How do you navigate either a friendship breakup or growing apart from a really close friend?
I think that's like my toxic trait. I'm like honestly working so hard on that in therapy. So like, okay, I'm a Scorpio, and sometimes I feel like when I cut people off, it's really, I'm cutting myself off because I don't feel like valuable enough to be around that person. Or I can't communicate like something. So it's actually like, it can be very toxic on my end, but it's normally a reflection of me. But it's hard to communicate that to someone else, and they probably think it's them or whatever. So really, I'm working on a lot of that, and truthfully have not figured it out just yet. It's hard. Like, I've literally mourned so many friendships for different reasons. And the ones that weren't necessarily my fault, I feel like it's just a bummer. Like, I had friends, especially in the pandemic, where like we went through that whole thing of realizing like, okay, I got some pretty fucked up friends. Like, or you just saw people's true
realizing
colors.
things.
Realizing things. Yeah. And it sucked, man. Like, it really sucked. And like, literally one of my like childhood friends, that was probably like my biggest like friend breakup. You know, it was just, and it was their decision. But that was probably one of the most brutal instances for me. And I think what happened in turn from that is that I became really jaded. And it was like after that, I had a hard time like initiating friendships and stuff. And I'm just now getting to the place of feeling safe enough to, you know, start to have new friends and stuff. But I mean, that was probably just as bad as a breakup. Like, you know, not speaking to someone that you've literally been to their house, like your best friend, their family's your family. You're over at their house all the time. Like, it sucks.
My toxic trait is not knowing when to let go. Or no, I think I know I should let go. I think I just don't. You know, I think I do know better.
Yeah.
But I am very loyal to a fault. Like, it's not, I actually don't think it's a good quality of mine at all. And so I don't really like change when it comes to relationships, even though I have change in my friendships and relationships all the time.
Yeah.
But it's specific ones. So if I have had someone in my life for most of my life, like, that means a lot to me. It's like they've been there through so much, the ups and downs, like my childhood, so many traumatic things.
Yeah.
So it makes me as an adult now turning 25 this summer, when I'm like, I know this friendship is not really healthy, and I know this friendship is probably not great for me and probably not great for that person. I've had a really hard time knowing when I'm supposed to let go and when I'm supposed to, like, oh, maybe we should talk it out, and maybe we should, like, it's almost like I do see this pattern in my relationships, in my dating relationships, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think where it affects me even more is friendships. And then who you surround yourself with is, like, obviously the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
And it can either be, like, the best thing or the worst thing for you. And so I'm currently having an issue knowing when I'm supposed to, like, let go, because then I will find myself, I always blame myself for everything.
Yeah.
And so let's say I have like a friendship fallout, or they're not really ever friendship fallouts or like fights. It's more so we're just like drifting over time. But instead of being like, you know what, actually this, and I am wrong a lot of the time, but like let's say it's a scenario where I did everything I could, I still will find a way to like victimize that person, make it my fault. Because I think in my head, if it's my fault, then like I can fix it. I think it's kind of a control thing.
Yeah.
But I'm currently having that issue, and I'm trying to like figure it out. I was talking to someone who's older than me yesterday about this, who's like a female entrepreneur in Dallas, very successful. And she's like, this is going to happen to you time and time again. Like, you have to just learn and figure it out over time, but it's not something you learn overnight. But that's my problem, is that like I just can't let go for whatever reason.
That was me in college.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm like the polar opposite. Like now what you're saying, I'm like, no, I'm the opposite. But like I think I'm a little too opposite of you, where like I'm too quick to cut people off, because I think of the friend breakups I've had in the past now, where I'm like, you're not gonna hurt me. Like I'll just leave. I'll walk myself out the door. But no, I think what you have to think about in that cycle with victimizing the other person is like, you have to look at the relationship not as like transactional, but like how much are they bringing to the table in this friendship? Is it you that's constantly having to like take the wheel here and fix things? Because that's not fair to you, especially if you're doing everything that you can. You can only do so much. So I think you have to ask yourself, like, what value are you getting from this relationship? And is it more toxic for you, or is it more like, is it worth the fight, I guess? You know, is it draining you energetically? Like I'm really big on energy. So like if I just always feel like it's a chore, and like I don't know, like the soul is being sucked out of me every time I'm around this kind of person, then that's something I have to look at. And it doesn't always mean that they're a bad person. Like sometimes you're just not matching up anymore, you know? Same with like breakups. Sometimes you could be two great people that just aren't good for each other. And I think same for friendships, you know? So you have to be a little more careful with your time and who you spend time with, because at the end of the day, like you want to be surrounded by people who respect you too.
Yeah. And I'm like looking really deep into my life, thinking, why am I like this? I think it's weirdly a combination of having divorced parents and like wanting to make things work.
Yeah.
And then also feeling very isolated. And anyone who grew up with me always thinks I'm annoying for saying this, because I was by no means an outcast, but I did start YouTube when I was 15, 16. It's a weird thing to do.
That's wild.
Yeah. And it wasn't like I was ever the outcast. Like it wasn't that, but I didn't really feel like I connected with my friends much anymore, because my interests just drastically changed when I started working. And I feel like I was talking to my dad about this last night. I'm like, I'm in the best place I've been friendship wise with all of my friends from home. And I'm like, it's because everyone has careers now. So like we all are like on like the same ground again. And I was like, I just, you know, it was like a weird thing. So I think I was always grateful for the people that I felt so at home and comfortable with.
Yeah.
To the point where I ended up keeping myself and like holding myself back. Do you listen to Ed Milet? I think you would actually really like Ed Milet.
Yeah.
He's like a personal development business entrepreneur kind of guy, but he has really good episodes on Skinny Confidential. Anyways, he just wrote this book in the chapter about friendships and about how he's very like, obviously you are who you surround yourself with, and there's going to be friendships, there's going to be relationships in your life that you pour more into and then or they pour more into you.
Mm-hmm.
It's never really like fully 50-50, or it's not always 50-50.
Exactly.
But that chapter really challenged me because I was like, I'm holding myself back, but keeping myself in certain relationships that are not good. I think that like we both have outgrown, but like holding on to it. So that's what I'm trying to learn, like kind of unlearn almost.
Yeah. You've got to like respect yourself enough to be like, hey, this isn't serving me anymore. And it doesn't have to be like dramatic or catastrophic either. It could just be like, I don't spend as much time with that person anymore. But again, like evolving adult friendships, like you kind of have to start thinking about these things more because you're giving more of yourself in other areas of your life, work, family, all the things. So like it's tough, but sometimes things just change and look different.
And if you don't let go of those friendships, you won't have any room for
really good ones.
For really good friendships. Like the ones that I'm talking about have faded out of my life. And now, like I said, I'm in the best place I've been friendship-wise because I've given myself that time. With me, it's more, I'm not holding on to those things anymore. Like with my time, it's more of like sometimes my mental and emotional energy, I'll kind of spiral with it. But yeah, I don't know. It's really, your 20s are so weird and they're very difficult. And friends that you thought you'd be friends with forever, it doesn't always end up that way.
Not at all.
Which is really difficult sometimes when you're me and you're kind of like a control freak and you don't like change with the relationships. But it's also a good thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And to like, I'm so with you on change and like control. Like those are probably the biggest themes right now for me, trying to like not be so clingy to both of those things right now. But like you said, even if you try to fight it and force it, it's going to end up the way that it should. And I think like the more you try to fight it and control it, the worse it can probably be. You know, like deep down, we have intuition, we have those gut feelings like something is off here. And we really have to get more confident in listening to that, because I feel like even when I meet people, sometimes they can be like the sweetest people, and for whatever reason, I'm not clicking with them. And it's not anything to be interpreted. It's just like, I'm not on the same vibe as that person, and that's okay. And everyone else can love them or whatever, but I just didn't click. You know what I mean? But it's like, I feel like these little bits of intuition and gut feelings that we get are like there for a reason, to kind of steer us and help us know like, you were right, it's okay, like something about this relationship or situation isn't for you.
Yeah, and just because something isn't for you doesn't make the other person a bad person, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Which I think also makes it harder, because you're like, there's nothing necessarily wrong, it's just not right.
Yeah.
Something that someone told me in college that I always think about is hold everything in life with an open hand, whether it's your career, friendships, relationships, whatever it is. Because if you think about it, when you're holding something with an open hand, there's air and room for it to breathe and grow and change and evolve, which is ultimately what you need in life. But if you're holding something, like if you're clenching it with your fist, you're suffocating it. So I think about that with friendships. And even I've had friendships now that have been in my life, not off and on in a way that we've had like fallouts and stuff, but just like at different times we've been close and then we've reconnected and whatever. Like all of my friends that I hang out with now, 90% of them I've reconnected with post-grad, and we didn't talk for years before that. And it's like, that's another example of like holding things with an open hand. You don't know. Like I think a lot of I had great friends in college. I had a really small school, so I didn't have like these huge friend groups and stuff. And like a lot of college friends, that was a lot of change and growth. And like we're not always super close. We're not super close with the people that we went to college with. We have a few close friends, but like you move and your life changes and like your interests change and what you're doing changes. And even just being in different cities is going to change that. It doesn't necessarily mean
it makes
there's
everything
something bad.
Harder. Right.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's like, it doesn't mean that like those people are bad or you're bad or you're failing. It's just like sometimes things change.
They do. And it's a tough realization. Like, I don't know, it was really hard, especially in the pandemic. I had too much time to think about it. I was like, man, it just really sucks. Like, the friendships that we had. And for a while though, but I'm glad that we're saying that though, because it's just kind of like the ebb and flow of life. Because I wish someone would have like told me, it's not you, Bria, because I was fully convinced like I'm just a shit friend.
Yeah, same.
you know, and people like us, I feel like we just kind of put the blame on ourselves because it's easier to rationalize when that's just not true. I mean, truly, there are no reasons why. Like, if you've done everything you can, especially, and things just kind of drift apart, and it's that simple. It's not like anything to be overthought.
Do you feel like you attract maybe more insecure people who are like more takers?
No.
What kind of people do you think you attract? Or like who are you typically around?
I feel like I attract a lot of extrovert friends, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And I'm not. Like AJ, my husband, is the biggest extrovert. Like, for example, at that reunion I was telling you about, I'm ready to go at like 9 and I can't find him because he's like literally surrounded by my high school guy friends and they're just like chalking it up back there. And I'm like, okay, like whenever you're ready to leave my reunion, you just let me know. But like I have that social battery where I'm like, I'm out. I think it's interesting that I do attract a lot of extroverts because I don't have a lot of battery in me anymore. I used to, and now I just don't. And I'm like, luckily I attract friends that understand that about me. Like I had a girls' night in the other day. And at like 9 o'clock, I'm like in the corner, kind of like getting quiet. And one of my friends comes over. She's like, "Do you want us to leave?" And I was like, "No, you guys can stay. But if I go to bed, like it's cool, seriously."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Okay, cool." So they were just cozied up on my couch. And I'm like, we just understand our dynamic in that when like Bria's mentally done, I'm done. But you guys keep rallying. And that's me in like every social situation. I'm probably the first to leave. And I feel like I've had hard situations with, and they're not even my friends anymore, with people who took that personal about me. They didn't understand that about me.
I think that's another great thing about adult friendships. As you grow and mature and you find the right people for you, people are more understanding.
Right.
And that isn't taken as personally. Because like even, I mean, in adulthood, it can be taken personally with the right. Obviously, that still is adulthood. But that is one of the best things of like, I feel like I'm less likely to get offended and my friends around me are a lot less likely to get offended.
Yeah. And I think also I feel like more comfortable just saying that to people. Like I explaining myself before they think like, oh, is she mad or something like that? Because I used to just like Irish goodbye or whatever it's called in college. And then my friends would literally blow up on me the next day. Like, where did you go? We couldn't find you. And I felt like it was easier to just leave than try to explain myself. You know what I mean? But I think that communication, now that I'm like more willing to talk about it, because I know that it has like hurt my friends in the past, that I didn't explain to them like, hey, this was overwhelming for me. Like, I'm just really tired, or like I got really anxious and I had to go. Now people get that about me and they respect that about me. And they're like, we can all thrive in this little ecosystem. We just need to know more about each other and what our needs are.
And I think that's really good, one, to know that about yourself, but also to like have the boundaries set in place.
Yeah.
Because if not, if you're like people pleasing and staying and running yourself so dry, that's going to hurt your friendship so much more than like, hey, I'm really just done. I can't do it tonight.
Literally.
You know?
Yeah. Like you can't just like please everyone, like you said, and just do stuff that puts you in an uncomfortable position. And I used to just do that, especially in college, but especially now, like closer in my late 20s, where my mental health has really like changed a lot. I have to set those boundaries because it's like, okay, I have to go back home with myself and like reset and everything. So, you know, I can't just do this to make everyone else happy anymore. And people understand that.
I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of mental health, I want to talk about panic attacks, anxiety. You're very open about this.
Yes.
You have lots of good, like, I feel like a lot of good content on YouTube for this topic too. Can you share a little bit about your experience with anxiety?
Yeah, so anxiety has, honestly, I feel like it's correlated a lot to the trajectory of my career. The more I've grown, the more it's grown.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, on the way here, actually, literally why I was anxious. Yep.
Yeah. And so that's like kind of the fine print that I'm learning now in terms of like, you know, growth is great. And when you're trying to expand your business or whatever, you don't really think about that. Like, oh, I couldn't possibly like take that as a negative thing. But no, for me, it's been like the more my business has grown, the more my platforms have grown, the more money I've made, the more stressed I've been getting, because with that comes more responsibilities. I hate having conversations with my financial advisor. Like, these are things that stress me out. And I didn't have those responsibilities before because I didn't really have money to manage for a business.
That used to give me so much anxiety. And it was when I moved to Texas that I was like, I don't want this. Like, I made meeting with my financial advisor, like, to be a lot more proactive. And only since then, but even now it gives me anxiety. Like, but that was my biggest source of, because you just don't know what to do. It was horrible. Yeah.
No, it's so stressful. Yeah. It's like, how much do I put aside for taxes?
Exactly.
Or like, now I'm in the phase of hiring people to help me. And that's been a whole thing too. Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't want to, of course, nobody wants to do it the wrong way. And then, I've worked so hard to get here that I think there's that anxiety that if you fuck up, Bria, it's all going to be gone.
Yeah.
There's still that version of me that wants to like interject in my thoughts and scare me. And what I've had to do is, it was pretty bad. I think like 2 months ago was probably the worst my anxiety's been. And so I would be in public, and then basically what would happen is like, I would feel like the walls were closing in on me. And the only thing I could think to do was like run. Like, that's all I could do. It was like this instinctive thing. So we were like sitting in a restaurant one time, and I'm in a booth. And that was like the worst place to be when I started to like panic. So I'm just like, now I don't know what anyone is saying around me. I'm like looking around like nervously. And then like AJ is just confused because like I hadn't had these panic attacks before. So he's like, okay, you're being weird. And also you shouldn't say that to someone who's having a panic attack because that's even worse. So, I was with family at the time and I didn't want to scare them. So then on top of me feeling like I'm about to hyperventilate, I'm also like, I can't hyperventilate because if I do, they're going to think I'm dying and this is going to be really scary. And I'm just thinking how I'm going to ruin everyone's time when really I needed some support and I shouldn't be like putting everyone before me in this moment. So we get in the car and like I needed to tell somebody. So I like very subtly like tapped my husband in the car and I was like, a panic attack. Like I just like mouthed it to him and he was like, okay. And so I'm like opening the window and I'm like, looking at it now, it's kind of hilarious. I'm sticking my head out the window like a dog, like trying to deep breathe. And my family's in the backseat. I'm trying not to be obvious that like I am not okay right now. So when I started to have these public instances, that's when I was like, okay, this is actually really bad. So I got back in therapy. I found someone in Dallas and then we started to have like, it's called progressive muscle relaxation or something like that. It's like a tactic I can use when I feel like I'm having an attack. Trying that, and if that doesn't work, then medication is like the next step. But honestly, I didn't want to go the medication route. I've been on anxiety meds before and I just feel like it took away my personality. So it's not a no, it's just not my first option. And I've been working on that, but I also started reading a lot of books on anxiety and kind of looking at this little anxious voice in my head as the childlike version of me. And that was like really impactful. It was like a simple thing I could do. But for example, when that anxious thought of like, hey, Bria, you're going to lose everything you've worked for if you make one mistake. That's like baby Bria, who came from nothing, who's just looking out for me, but maybe not articulating it in the best way. So when I kind of started to become friends with that voice and be like, hey, thanks for letting me know, but I think we're okay. We have the tools, we have the resources, we have the support we need. We don't have to go there right now. I think when I started to look at that voice as a friend, I started to calm down and like had less panic attacks. And I haven't had panic attacks in like at least a month now. So that's like pretty great for me. But it took looking at that as like, I'm not going to fight against this voice, this anxiety. I'm going to nurture it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to calm it down by like reassuring it. And I kind of separated myself from the anxiety. So that's helped me a lot. But there's this book called Unwinding Anxiety, 10 out of 10, recommend reading. That has helped me in a lot of ways. And just kind of like meditation, focusing on lifestyle habits, like morning walks, stuff like that. Really good.
What I have to do when I have like anxious spirals about my career or mainly it is career wise, now that I'm thinking about it. It's pretty much always linked to that.
Same.
But I try to almost look at myself like it's like an out of body experience. Like it's like my anxiety, I look at it as like a totally different person.
Yeah.
So very similar, but it's what I have started doing over the past probably like a year or so is like telling myself the facts. So it's like not only do I look at my anxiety as it's a separate person, but I will go through and be like, is that a fact? But is that true? Who told you that? Like asking myself who told me that is really helpful.
Yeah, like deducing your idea and kind of getting to the bottom line. Like, where is that coming from?
Yeah, and like, is that actually true? And is that actually a fact? And even if it is, well, worst case scenario, how to like, not worst case in an unhealthy way, but worst case of like, I'll still be okay.
Yeah.
And getting to that point. But that's something I feel like people do talk about online, but not enough because like it has to affect everyone who's on the internet. Like I can't imagine it doesn't. It doesn't matter how big you are too. I always think like it's something that I always try to like I ask around a lot and then always like work through in therapy because I'm like I don't think that there will just be a day. I mean, obviously I know how anxiety works. I've had anxiety my entire life, but like I don't think that like there will be a day where you hit a certain career like milestone and then it goes away.
Right.
It only gets probably worse and worse as time goes on.
Yeah, and that's why I think like what we're doing, going to therapy and learning these tactics now, because like with you, I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to like with success become more stressed out because I don't think I could possibly handle that. Like I can't even go to Chili's right now. Yeah, like I'm just trying to go to Chili's and get some queso without having a freak out in public. Seriously though, Chili's is slept on. So but yeah, like we have to learn these tools, and I think also, like you said, in this era of social media, like we are the guinea pigs for what this is doing to us mentally. And so that sucks.
I know, that really sucks. Yeah.
So it's so true though. Like who do we have to look to see what the effects are going to be, especially as creators? And people like to downplay creators and influencers and their mental health because like, oh, you have a platform. I'm like, please, if that was the secret sauce to happiness, a lot more people would be doing this job. Yeah. It's not. And so I think we just need to all understand this is like a really transformative period in the human evolution. It really is with social media. And we've got to kind of like create that buffer and tactics to like be able to kind of fight that.
What you said in response, this just reminded me, because I don't think social media is going away in any way, shape, or form. I love Emma Chamberlain so much.
Same.
I didn't agree. I didn't even listen to the episode, so I guess I can't really. But like I heard enough on TikTok. I didn't agree with basically her saying the influencer is dying, and I fully agreed with what you said. And that's another thing. Like we're on such new territory. It'll still be new territory probably like 10 years from now. Like this is such. You just don't know how much it's going to affect you. Something that I've been seeing a lot on TikTok is people not wanting to take this full time because they don't. I actually think this might have been Sierra who said this, but she's great, love her. But she was saying she doesn't really want, whoever it was saying they don't really want to take it full time because they don't like the idea that their career stems off their likability as a person, because that's so personal to you.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this since I was 16, like the internet of some shape or form. I don't know what life is like without that. And I've never really thought of it that way. Like, I think the TikTok new wave is so different too than YouTube was. Like you blew up a lot faster and it's a different ratio to YouTube to TikTok. It's just a totally different platform. And TikTok comments are just so mean because it's
Right.
on so many different
They are
pages.
unhinged.
They're unhinged. I feel like TikTok comments now are what YouTube comments were in like 2016. YouTube has not
really?
been that mean.
I feel so safe on YouTube.
Yes, YouTube is so, because you have to go out of your way to watch the video. For like a TikTok can just show up on your phone for you, bitch. That's why a lot of views, it's like, yeah, you're getting that many views, but how many people are actually like engaged?
Right.
It's totally different.
It's
like
very
whereas
different.
if people are watching your YouTube video, they're actually are like more engaged.
Yeah.
So it feels safer.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it until they said that. I was like, that is so true. Like your career really does stem off of
I think
people liking you.
Yeah, I guess that is true to a certain extent. Depending on your content, I
don't feel it fully, but I get what they're saying.
I get what they're saying too, and I feel like personally, I used to like really believe in that, and I think that was like a toxic mindset for me to have, that like I have to be so likable in order to have a career, and that's just not possible. If on the internet you're not going to be liked by everybody. So I get that statement, but also I think what your career also depends on is like the value you bring, because like you don't have to like a person, but like what if this person has like really good insight on this area of your life that you want help with? You know what I mean? Because I follow like a few people that I wouldn't necessarily say I like adore and love them, but they're like really smart and I just value what they have to say. So I think in terms of being a creator, like if you can bring value, like you'll be relevant in that sense, and likability is like the cherry on top. But I had to disconnect myself from the likability factor because I just will never be able to make everyone happy.
So when I was thinking of likability totally different than you were thinking of likability. I completely agree with you. When I think likability, I didn't mean being liked by the masses.
Oh.
I meant like people have to like you and then cancel culture.
Oh.
But when I think of it, I actually don't think you should be liked by everyone, because if you're liked by everyone, you're not really, no one's a dedicated follower of yours. I think you have to find the people that actually like you, and that's not going to be everyone, you know?
Exactly.
And I think you're actually better off not being liked by other people, because that means you're going to be really liked by other people who really get you.
Yeah.
There's no one person in the world that is liked by everyone. So if everyone on the internet likes you, you have a bunch of like lukewarm followers.
Right.
I don't think you should be liked by everyone at all. I more so meant, I guess, like in the cancer culture thing of it all. But I've never gone down that mindset or spiral, because that's a recent TikTok thing. That was never a YouTube thing. I always felt like people, like even this weekend, I had a pop-up recently and girls came that literally followed me since high school. Wow. And they're like, I feel like we've grown up together. Like I know so much of this, and like when you went through this and it helped me and things like that. I feel like YouTube allowed me to, and the podcast really honestly, but has allowed me to make a really strong connection with my audience.
Yes.
Versus like, I'm not looking to be liked by everyone. Also, I'm like,
that is so fact. I just told AJ that because like, so I'm newer to YouTube for everybody listening. And so I'm
killing it on YouTube though.
Recently started to grow after like literally 4 years of crickets. So we're very happy. But I was saying that this has never happened to me before as a creator, that like I have this community now that really cares about me on this deeper level. Like I've been getting the sweetest message. Like you get those messages like, oh my God, I love this, love that. No, I'm getting like the paragraphs where it's like, you changed my life. And every now and then that would happen, but like that has never happened to me as frequently as it is now, where like every time I open my phone, there's another message. And I was thinking about like why, and they're all from YouTube. This is not TikTok. This is not Instagram people. These are all my subscribers. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know, they're literally, this is the only long form platform. They're like up in my business. And like, it's that FaceTime vibe. Like we hang out, like they turn you on while they're cleaning or whatever. And so there's this level of like intimacy that you can't get anywhere else. And I'm just now discovering this. And I'm like, it's really cool. I'm sure there's negative sides to this and I'll figure it out at some point. You're like, but I'm honestly just like so thankful for this new like level of connection with my followers, because I've never had that. Like TikTok was my biggest platform, and it's like you guys get increments of me literally in 15 seconds, and you don't know me on TikTok. You know the little bits and pieces I put out there. But now it's like this really cool experience.
I remember when I started the podcast and the network was saying like you were gonna gain a much deeper connection with your audience, and I think that's because they were like people maybe weren't on YouTube before they were starting podcasts. They were coming from different avenues, and I was like, I have that because of YouTube. And I remember always thinking like, what? And then once I was on TikTok, and I can tell immediately when someone comes up to me based on what if they listen, either listen to the podcast and YouTube, those are grouped into two, or they're a TikTok follower.
Yeah.
Because it's very surface level. It's like, oh my God, like I follow you, whatever, like very quick. YouTube podcast, it's like they know you. It's way more. And also like even when it comes down to like a business model, it works better because people are more invested in your building. Like for me, I've always wanted to build a community.
Yes.
And so like and I think there's people who have done a great job on TikTok that have done that, but I think it's a lot harder.
It is.
Whereas a podcast or a YouTube channel, it allows, because they're long form content, it allows for that like almost like community breeding ground.
Yeah.
To where people are a lot more invested. Even in my like Geneva chat, and like someone comes up and they're like, oh my God, my best friends are Geneva, whatever. I can always tell if they found me through TikTok or if it's YouTube podcast, because the connection is just totally different.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like so rewarding. Like I love that, but I'm glad I started with YouTube first. I don't think I would have lasted this long had I not.
Yeah, that was my regret, was not starting with YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I could tell pretty quickly, one, it's one of the most stable platforms, and two, it's one of the most lucrative. So from a business standpoint, I was like, man, I am sleeping on YouTube. But I mean, that's why you literally hear people refer to these people on YouTube as YouTubers. Like that is a whole career. Like the amount of effort and energy you have to put into it and the kind of community you get there, it's literally its own career. You don't hear people, I mean, people kind of say like, oh, TikTokers and like Instagram, I guess Instagram model was a term, but it's like, I don't know, in my mind, like YouTuber held a lot more weight. Like when you heard that word, you were like, oh yeah, rich, like stable.
The
like,
money is different.
You know, it's very different. And so I fully agree. Like I made it a big goal to like really focus on YouTube. And it was so hard because like at this point getting into YouTube, like I started maybe like 4 years ago. I mean, it's so saturated. Saturated. And it's like, I don't know how to even be on this platform. I don't know how to work it. But like literally when I gave up and I was like, I'm just going to make whatever content show up in my bonnet, like not try. I used to like try to be so.
But that's what people love.
Yeah. I used to try to be so interesting and like coordinate my days around YouTube. And literally when I was like, hey, like I'm at home, clean with me, that's when stuff started to grow and work out.
Yeah. People just like your everyday stuff. I don't watch, like the YouTubers that I watch, I only watch their vlogs when they're at home. I never watch travel. I don't watch that. Like I like a normal day to day. And that's the same with my audience. Last thing I'll say on the YouTube TikTok like topic, I was getting really down on myself for my YouTube channel. And I was like, I just feel like no one's watching, no one cares. Spiral, typical stuff that's not true. But in my head, it was very true at this period of my life. So I talking to a friend and I was like, I wish I could just do TikTok and podcasts. I'm so jealous of people who are just TikTok and podcasts. And like I would never give up my YouTube channel. But like I was like, I'm jealous of that. And a friend of mine who's very big on YouTube was like, whatever you do, do not do that, because YouTube is the most stable. You have what so many people on TikTok would kill to have.
I was just going to say, Kenzie, do you want to switch with me?
No, literally. And that's what everyone on TikTok says. But it's like grass is always greener, you know?
It is. Like,
but I was
spiraling.
That's
so funny that like you have those thoughts and I'm literally like, I'll switch with you. That would be so funny. Like, no, I literally would switch with you. But like from that standpoint though, there was a time when Trump was like, oh, we're going to take away TikTok. I was like, that's my whole career. So
add it to the list.
That's great. Yeah, just check that box too. Like just snatch a job away from another gal. Yeah, that really was scary for me. And that's when I realized how fragile my job was. But I think in that sense, that's when I really got serious about YouTube after that situation happened. Because I literally was like on my friend's bachelorette trip having the worst time because I'm like, is it over? Like, did it pass? And I'm like, I had to get on TikTok, make a quick video, like, hey, follow me on Instagram if you care. Like, you know, it just sucks to be in that position. And like, as a creator though, like, I'm so proud of you for like creating things of your own, like your own brand and stuff, because yeah, like I haven't gotten to the point of like figuring out what I want to do in that sense. And that scares me. Because right now my focus
There's no rush on
that,
yeah.
My focus is just building community, like you said. And I don't want to have to jump into like creating something for safety. I want to do that when it feels right.
Yeah. And that's another thing. If you're a content creator, diversify your platforms. It is so important.
Be everywhere.
Yeah, be everywhere. Like a lot of people are like, find your thing, stick with them. Honestly, be everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
or if you're gonna like niche or pick one thing, it's YouTube. Like seriously, YouTube, and I feel like podcasts are really safe to go with because you have control over like the platform.
Yeah. I will say TikTok is the easiest for growth.
Yes.
So if you're trying to grow, TikTok, and you don't have to actually be on every single platform, but I will say I was like, no, I'm setting a boundary when TikTok started. I'm like, I'm already on YouTube. I'm posting like 5 times a week on YouTube at that point. I'm on Instagram and I'm doing a podcast. I literally cannot add more. My biggest regret is not hopping on TikTok when it was like everyone was growing so quickly. Because now I'm on TikTok and I love it because it's fun. It feels like a hobby again. It feels like what YouTube felt like when I was like 16, 17.
Yeah. So
I'm loving TikTok and I'm like, I wish I would have done this because it's I don't know if there will ever be an app again where it was that easy to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, take that with a grain of salt. Last thing I want to talk about with you is being the breadwinner.
Oh, yes.
I love this topic.
Breadwinning housewife energy.
Breadwinning housewife energy. The summer collection is now out, guys. Go shop it. But I want you to share your perspective as being like the female breadwinner in the family, I guess. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, it's very wild. So my husband quit his corporate job right after our wedding, which was like October, November, to full-time work with me. And so that was like a huge milestone for us. Like it was something that we knew we eventually wanted to get to, for one, like the freedom of it, to like be able to have control over our day and everything. But I think my husband's white, first of all. So I'm in an interracial relationship. So there's a layer that we have to address right there. So I've already been used to the experience of like going out to eat and like, you know, not really being acknowledged, or like whenever we are doing business types of things, like they look at him, they don't look at me. And so I was already used to that. But when I became the breadwinner and literally was like, I'm the one signing these contracts, like, and he was just there, you know, with me during those times, it's like you really feel the like heat there with how people don't even expect it to be you, don't even ask questions like, hey, who's making the decisions here, you know, in terms of my entire business, my business. People would never assume that. And so that was one thing that I kind of had to get over. It doesn't bother me anymore. It used to a lot, because like I work my ass off to get here just for my husband to stand next to me and get acknowledged. Like, come on. And it's not his fault. He feels like terrible about those situations. But that's just how the world is. And so I think the most surprising part has been like, love my parents. I hope they don't listen to this, but my parents, I've realized, are very just like not traditional, or very traditional. Sorry. And me and AJ obviously are not. Like there's a lot of parts of our lives that are just going against the grain here. Yeah. And so I had made this, just like a funny story at this point, but I was at my parents' house and I made a comment, and I don't remember what the sentence was, but I referred to myself as the breadwinner. My mom about flew out of her chair and was like, don't say that in front of AJ ever. And he wasn't there. And I was like, so confused. I'm like, I am the breadwinner. And she's like, yeah, but you don't have to say it. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, genuinely, like, part of me was pissed that she was so defensive that I could not say that about myself, especially after how hard I worked, but also that like, that's a bad word. Because if I said AJ's the breadwinner, nobody would think twice, right? So I'm confused that this is fact, this is truth, and you're telling me not to say it. And by the way, AJ would shout it from the mountaintops that I'm the breadwinner. That's because awesome. This has been a huge benefit to both of us. And he is my biggest supporter. He would never, ever, his ego is just not in the way of that. And I think that's why we're able to succeed and continue to grow, because it's not about that power dynamic. We both contribute in ways that work for us. Like, I don't cook, he does. Yep. But that doesn't make him any less of a man or whatever he wants to interpret it as. But some people would be like, oh, that's a weird dynamic. It's not for us. It works for us. I'm just not like, my cooking sucks, and we can acknowledge what we're good at and our strengths in this relationship.
Play to your strengths.
Yeah, and just that works for us. Like, why does it have to be this big thing and these like stereotypes and traditional roles? Like, you know, just do what works for you. But the breadwinner thing was probably the funniest thing that I've had to come to terms with, mostly with like older people addressing us. And some people not even like really taking me serious about it. Like, we have this one person, I wouldn't call them a friend, that literally mocks my job and is like, but they don't keep up with me in any way to know like, oh, I'm actually like doing pretty great.
Probably far out earning them.
Yeah.
You've made a successful business. You've grown it. Yes. Yeah. Like, I can go on and on and on. Yes.
Like, literally, this person was aware that like I like literally hired my husband, right? And he's like, so are you full time yet? Like, are you still, you know, it was the tone. It was like, I know what you're doing here. Like, you're trying to.
Oh, no, I know the type.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what, yeah, I can picture it.
You know, and so it's just, that's annoying. But I think it makes these wins even more special to me, because I'm like, yeah, I am doing that. We're doing that. And it might not look like how people picture it to look, but I think that's even better, because I mean, that's so boring to like just think that it could only be one way. And like, how cool is it that there's a Black woman who's like making these things happen? Like, you should be happy for me, you know?
Yeah, very happy for you.
Yeah, and most people are. It's like the very few that make it apparent that they don't think I should have these things. And I'm like, well, you just wait, because more's coming.
What I really dislike on top of that is that the whole concept of, I'm not even dating right now, and I'm like, it is, again, I was talking to my dad about this last night. I'm like, it's actually a very difficult thing in dating, because it really does, even if someone says they don't care and it doesn't bother them, the chances of it bothering them later, like, in a way, it's actually kind of nice, because it makes like my dating pool smaller.
Yeah.
So it really does kind of help me. But it's just a really fucked up thing that as a girl who's like successful and a high earner, you know that like that could eventually play. Like, obviously that's not your problem. Like, you guys have a great marriage. It's not AJ at all. But like, it is annoying when it comes to dating. And just in general, like, why should girls be ashamed of how much they make, or like not be able to say they're a breadwinner,
like,
or not
that's
be able.
That's not your problem. That's their problem. They have to like deeply reflect on, why does that piss you off? Because AJ is looking at me like, yeah, like, we get more vacation time. Like, get it. He's like, you got to look at it as like the win is for everyone.
Does he come from a family that's like that, or like what? Or is he just like naturally like that?
He's just always been like really supportive and like, I
just
mean,
a healthy male.
Yeah, and that's, I was also gonna say, like, I think it's important to acknowledge that AJ was with me when I first started, so he watched me grow into this career, and maybe it would have been different if we met when I was already more established. Like, it would have felt uncomfortable for him, because there were, like, for example, when we first started dating, he had like insecurities in terms of like thinking that he wasn't good enough to date me, you know, that type of energy. And he had to like gain his confidence. I'm like, I'm with you for a reason. Like, you need to see that. Like, you're the one who, you went after me because like, yeah, we are good for each other. So I think maybe if we had met down the road, there could have been a little bit of dissonance in that way with our career, and might have made him feel some kind of way. But because he's been the one helping me along the journey, I think it was easier for him to be like, and he's been a part of it. Like, he's helped me. So it wasn't just me. Like, I couldn't have done a fraction of this without his help. You know, he was very essential to my success. And I think he's also proud of that too, because we did this together, you know. But it's hard that, like, you know, it can't just be easier, and people can't accept that with women when, you know, if the roles were reversed, It's not even a question.
I think that all the time. I'm like, why is it okay for a guy who's making 7 figures a year to be with a girl who's making like not much and isn't like, not that that's a bad thing, but like just isn't as,
it's not a big
whatever.
deal.
It's not a big deal.
No.
But if that's flipped, not that I don't want someone who's like super driven, but like the second that's flipped, it's so crazy, you know?
I think it's like they are more caught up on how people perceive them.
Yeah.
Rather than the actual reality of the situation. Because I think they're more caught up on like, oh, like she's the one providing. Like when you care about that part, it's going to get to you. But if you were just like, if nobody else was involved, you'd probably be like straight chilling. Like, yeah, she makes more than me. But I don't know. I'm trying to think like why it could honestly be that big of an issue.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of like, to be fair, like societal standards and like pressure that is put on men to be the provider. And like you were taught that from your family. And so if you end up finding your worth through that, I see, not that I agree with it or think it's right. I see why that would wear on your confidence and affect a relationship negatively. Like I think if you were in that mindset and in that headspace, instead of two being like, well, when we're together, it's like also a partnership. Like you said, like AJ is part of this. Like it wouldn't be, you know, so I think it's different. Also, I do think like sometimes very driven women who make a lot of money attract the complete opposite of that for whatever reason. And or like people not even attract, but like the people who are the opposite of like cling on to that because they want that energy, if that makes sense. So and that is obviously like a totally different topic, but I do think it's annoying, and I also think it's really stupid that girls, like, it's totally fine for a guy to be like bragging about his career and all this stuff and whatever, and the second that a female is like proud of herself for what she's built, especially if you're like in the digital age, like God forbid you be proud of like being an influencer or whatever. I think that it's just like messed up because it's again like making women smaller to make everyone else comfortable. And that's what makes me mad.
Yes. And that's what made me upset with the conversation with my mom was like, I mean, I'm your daughter. Like, you should be hyping me up. Right. And I think we kind of like came to an understanding after that conversation. But it was like, why do I have to like diminish who I am? And I'm just saying what is like literally fact. Like no, if I stop
literally fact. Like
if I stop working, no one's making money. I'm the breadwinner. That is just what it is. And so, and you know, even like my mom coming from a really good place, you know, saw it as like you're gonna, you know, put a strain on your marriage by like acknowledging that. I'm like, no, we don't. That's not how we work in this marriage. Like we're very straight
That's
up.
not how we work.
That's
no
not
way.
how we roll here. Like, yeah. And like I said, he'll tell you first before I can say it. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We've been talking for so long.
Of course, it's so fun. I was like, yeah, we need to do. We're basically having margaritas without margaritas.
No, literally, I can't believe I was thinking about this today because I thought you'd already been on the show. And I was like, wait a second, this is our first time. Like in my head, you had been on the podcast before. So this would be why it has taken so long. Because I was like, wait, she actually hasn't. I don't know why I was so set on the fact that you'd been on the show before.
Yeah, no, in spirit, I guess. But now it's actually a reality. I'm so glad.
Where can they find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram at Hey Bria Jones. And look out for a podcast in the fall, maybe.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know by giving it a nice thumbs up and subscribe for more.